Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We had a failed attempt at the Terraria island last time. But, you know what? All we have to do is build up, get our resources together, upgrade our armor and weapons, and try again. I'm not going to make us wait 10 hours to do that. So, let's just jump straight ahead to the next attempt. Alright, like I said, I've upgraded my armor, and I've upgraded from a crossbow to a compound bow, and I actually have a submachine, or an assault rifle now, with plenty of ammo, as well as better PAL spheres in the form of hyperspheres. And as you can see, I'm also about, I don't know, 20 or more levels higher than what I was. Yeah, I spent a considerable amount of time in the game just getting to the point where I could do this. As a matter of fact, I completely forgot the island was the whole goal of the series for a bit because I was working on other parts of projects that I have going on and didn't pay any attention to what all I was doing. I was just having fun with the game, which is one of the reasons why we're just jumping ahead and doing this. There's literally 20 hours worth of footage on my system from the last attempt to this one, and to be honest with you, probably 10 hours of it is just me tweaking my base a bit. Just to go ahead and give you an idea what the next episode is going to be, I'm going to put out one more episode in this series where I actually jump to my current day build, and I'll make that video later, but I'm going to fly around, show you what my current base looks like with my current setup, and go in and do the Terraria island with everything I have right now, which surprisingly is not as much upgraded stuff as you would think as far as the weapons go, because it gets a little bit more difficult to upgrade weapons when you start getting into Fey Break and Sakura Tide areas. The ore gets just a bit harder to farm up. But anyway, as you can see, the monsters in the Terraria island are no longer that big of a deal. They're about the mid-30s. They are still doing a little bit of damage, and were it not for the fact that there's a blue million of them, they really wouldn't be a problem at all. Just have to kind of take your time, but this is pretty fun. This is exactly what I was hoping it would be. It's very entertaining. The music is wonderful. It's reminiscent of Terraria from back in the day. Granted, this is still one of the early biomes, so there's plenty of room for things to actually get challenging again. Hyperspheres, still not the absolute best ones I could have, but they're only at a 9% catch rate to start out with. It's also at least partly because I haven't really upgraded my Life Monk effigies all that much. They're still, I think as the time I ran through this, at around rank 4 or 5. So those are really low. Realistically, I should be at least one more set of spheres up if I want a decent chance to catch things. But this just seemed like a fun thing to do. So I'm going to run through and do some sort of slow progression through this dungeon. In the meantime, what sort of topic should we discuss tonight? At least until things get interesting enough for me to need to start commentating. Because there is one point where things start getting a little bit hairy and a little bit more interesting. So, I guess one thing that would be kind of fun to talk about would be what future projects are we going to be working on the channel, because Palworld is getting ready to draw to a close, with the next video probably being the last one for a little bit, unless someone wants to see me try to do a harder play run. I would be down to do a hard mode playthrough where I don't modify the settings at all, because I could record 2 or 3 hours worth of footage, then edit that down into an episode, because, you know, a lot of it would be farming, and when you're farming, all you really need to do for the video is just cut out the farming segments, and voila, 2 or 3 hours worth of gameplay turn into a half hour. And that could potentially be an ongoing series. Now granted, if I started doing something like that, it would probably be 1 episode a week, just because the editing time and the gameplay time necessary, I'd have to find ways to squeeze it in there. Monster Hunter already gets 1 dedicated video a week, and the fact that I always put out at least 1 video on event quests if they change. The only time I skip doing those is if it's the same event quest from one week to the next. Like there won't be one for this week because they're not changing. But the challenge quest is going up for... I can't remember who it is that's popping up. Either way, there's a challenge quest popping up, which I probably do that and then just post my first successful attempt. I think that's a fun thing to do with it, but Monster Hunter gets at least one video a week. This could potentially get one a week. I'm enjoying playing it, and I would like an excuse to continue playing it, but I think it's about time to move inside the games. So, the next one I have lined up is Koromon. It's finally making some progress towards me getting enough gameplay that I feel like I can actually give an adequate overview of my opinion on the game. That's more or less what that one's going to be, is what are my opinions on it. The fun thing that has been about the Palworld videos is just coming up with topics and getting to ramble for a little bit, my like half-informed opinions on whatever subject it is that I'm talking about. But, I don't know, they seem to be semi-popular, so there is some consideration to doing them again. Now, granted, semi-popular within the context of a channel that has just a little over 24 subscribers. That's a pretty low threshold. You know, we're talking, some of them have a couple dozen views. The newest ones, take a minute to catch on, but the highest ones within the Palworld series have like 150 views, 160, somewhere up in there. So, yeah, might as well keep riding that fortune while it's going on. Outside of Koromon, though, Nexamon, I've got it downloaded. It seems like it'd be a fun game to do while I'm on the whole creature capture thing. Then there's a sort of rogue-like creature catcher combo-ish kind of thing that's not really either one of those that I would like to do a video on that I picked up from Steam when it was on sale. There's a couple things that, as far as games go, that I have in line. There's some more long-term projects that I've got built up. Like, I'm working on doing some book reviews. Those take time, though, because you have to actually read the whole book. And between recording footage for games and actually spending time with my family and helping my wife with that, so that keep my family, keep my wife happy, which obviously that comes way ahead of this, there's just not a lot of time to read. So a book of any length actually takes just a decent chunk of time, way more so than what it used to when I was younger. I used to be able to eat a 700-page book in about 5 or 6 days. That's just not an option now. Funny thing is, at the time I thought that was a pretty fun brag. Now looking back on it, I'm like, man, I really had nothing going on in my life. Because I'm not that fast of a reader. It was just not having enough stuff going on to need the time. Yeah, so that's going on. Need to work in some gym time. I've actually got to get back in the habit of doing that with a little bit more regularity, which probably means I need to keep things narrowed down to about 3 separate subjects a week. Been trying to take advantage of these last week or two of summer break to churn out a couple extra videos, and Palworld was just super easy to build up tons and tons of video footage of. So it became a series. Well, other than that, what else is there to chat about? I guess for just a moment we could switch back to the game. We're starting to get into the cave biomes and going a little bit deeper into the Terraria dungeon. Tell you, on the first playthrough, or if you watch someone actually use the glitch method to jump to the end of it, it seems like it's a massive amount larger than what it really is. It's actually not that hard to power run your way through it and just kind of charge to the Eye of Cthulhu. But it is a decent sized dungeon. Like, you actually do have all the different biomes. There's a ton of different enemies in it. Oh yeah, hey, one thing I didn't point out, I actually have started breeding, which is the reason why if you take a look at my pals, the lineup is quite a bit different. I still have Daydream for the moment, but Daydream will be gotten rid of shortly. But right now I'm running Anubis, Shadowbeak, Astagon, and Ragnarok. Ragnarok. Yeah, Ragnarok. Of course, with Ragnarok being my flying mount at the moment, not really a fighting one, although it's not a bad one bad pal to have out for combat. But my main combat one's Shadowbeak. Shadowbeak's just excellent, and it's relatively easy to get early game if you tap in breeding at all. As soon as you get the breeding farm going, and you get a couple key pals, you can pretty well just breed your way up to having whatever you want. Except for the legendaries, they have to breed themselves to make themselves, which is a smart move. You wouldn't want people being able to get the absolute, stat powerhouses that they are, although having an Asagon and a Shadowbeak in your party in a level 30, 40 dungeon is a bit overpowered. But yeah, so I feel like that's a similar thing to what would happen in a hard mode playthrough, is realistically you would struggle up until you actually really start getting breeding up and running. Getting a breeding farm established early on would probably be one of the keys to making a successful hard mode run. And this is where things start getting kind of interesting, because these guys, they're a little bit tougher than average. As you can see, the levels have climbed the deeper we went. And I had no idea what that wall was, but I did notice it was taking damage. So then it's like, oh wait, Terraria, you mine? We have mining tools. I would bet we can dig our way through there. Now see, I saw they were blasting me and actually doing a massive amount of damage. So what I did here is this thing called panic. And just decided, screw this, I'm not going to fight them. I'm just going to see if I can't power my way through the rest of this dungeon and get as many of the rewards as possible. And let's see how far I get before I get killed. Because what I figured was I was strong enough to handle the first half pretty easily, but I'm clearly still somewhat underpowered for the second half. That's kind of true. I'm not wearing any sort of palmetto. Actually, I might be wearing palmetto armor. I can't remember what level armor I'm at yet. Don't think I have got to the point of making palmetto gear yet, but I'm not far off. Yeah, no, that still looks like it's just metal armor, so keep looking at them. It's tempting to try to catch them, so I do, and it's not working. But if you notice, I'm using regular pal spheres. I'm just kind of chucking them at them, see if I can get them to take off. The reason being, I really want to get at least one attempt at catching the eye. Alright, so now that I've pointed out that I panic here, let's talk just general pop culture. Because that's actually, I mean, let's be honest here, that's the reason why I have this channel to begin with, is the parts of pop culture that I really enjoy. For me, the biggest thing in pop culture that I tend to have fun with is video games, but that does extend to movies and TV shows as well. But for this channel, games and books, they're the easiest things to cover and not run into any sort of significant copyright issues. There's a couple movie channels that I really enjoy watching, but even the ones that barely use any sort of movie clips constantly complain about different studios being more or less Nintendo-like in terms of how they content ID stuff. So if a channel that is fully dedicated to movies has trouble dealing with the content ID system, then a channel like mine, where it's really would just be something kind of in passing, it's not even worth my time. If I go see a movie that I think is particularly good, then I'll take the time to put up something about it here. Otherwise, I'm just not going to touch them. And same thing gets applied to TV shows because it's the same problems. However, that doesn't mean that I can't talk a little bit of news about that type of stuff. We'll save that discussion for later because we're actually almost at the point of going to fight Cthulhu. Or the Eye of Cthulhu, at least. He's right up here, up these stairs. And one beautiful thing about Terraria's dungeons is that they do tend to have a pretty clear exit room whenever you're actually going through them. And this one was very, very obvious. It's Unfortunate that those things back there killed my Shadowbeak because he actually has Mercy Hit, which is going to make trying to capture the Eye of Cthulhu a little bit trickier. And that's the whole reason why I saved some of my better spheres, was to make at least a couple of attempts at trying to capture this guy. Because, I mean, who doesn't want to have a giant eyeball tucked around in a chest to throw out at the occasional invader? So we've got Astagon out fighting, and just letting him do his thing and shooting from behind the rocks over there. My health's not in the greatest shape, and fortunately, he decided he wasn't going to pay any attention to me at all. He's fully focused on Astagon. Astagon's ass kind of keeps getting in the way and soaking up some of my bullets, though, so I wasn't really being all that much help chipping his health down. We go ahead and take one swing at capturing him, and I totally don't think to tell Astagon to stop hitting him, and he blows him up. Those pixelations are actually in the game, by the way. That's just part of it, kind of a little cheeky nod towards the sheer amount of gore that comes when he explodes. And here at the end, we get our chests. So, Celestial Sigil Schematic, talk about that later, and an Ancient Technical Manual. I really enjoy being able to pick up tech points at the end of dungeons. Why? Because I know it's going to bother me if the tech tree's not completed, but being able to grind out those manuals, which is a newer thing, by the way. Like, you weren't always able to grind out excess points, but being able to grind them out and finish out any of the tech trees that I don't get finished first time around. So, really enjoyed the dungeon. It was top tier. I really like the way that looked, and I'm really hoping that they have, if not other crossovers planned. I honestly feel like that's about the way the towers really should be. A long dungeon, and then at the end, that epic fight. Maybe let you open some sort of quick travel point so you can jump from the beginning of the dungeon to the end of the dungeon, if that's the way they did raid bosses going forward. But I think that would be a cool change for the game. So since we're going to dive back into base building for just a moment, and we're going to chat, we could pick back up our conversation about pop culture. What I was wanting to talk about is there's been some exciting news regarding Godzilla. I don't know about you, but I love Godzilla. It was a big part of my childhood. I don't know too many guys that didn't actually think he was at least kind of cool, since big monster destroying a city. Well, Toho recently announced they have some major plans to actually try to make it into a more multinational property than it already is, which includes a sequel to -1, a sequel to Shin Godzilla, and apparently a new series that's supposed to take place in Southeast Asia with a slightly different Godzilla design. So it seems like every area that they want to branch Godzilla out into is going to get their own Godzilla. When I actually managed to get a book review video up where I'm actually on camera, you'll see that immediately to my right is a bookshelf, and on top of that bookshelf, as every good video game nerd has, are at least a few figurines. I don't have nearly the collection that some of my peers have, but one of the things you will notice is prominently displayed a couple different Godzilla figures and other creatures from Godzilla in general. I don't know what it is about him, but the older I get, it still sticks with me. I still enjoy Godzilla. And of course, actually going on in game, we're going to make at least the one piece of gear that I can make from the Terraria dungeon, because all it really requires are the ingots that you pick up in that dungeon. It's the helm, and it's significantly better than the one that I currently have equipped. Well, significantly might be a bit of a stretch. Still better, still an improvement, and a relatively cheap improvement to make it that. I consider making a sigil, but the reality is I haven't touched raids at all, and I'm probably not going to touch raids in any time in the near future. I just don't want to sit down and make a dedicated base for doing that, and I don't really want to make a dedicated army of pals. There's plenty of other stuff to do before I jump into that massive time sink. And while we're looking through gear here, and while I'm thinking about it, one of the biggest tips I could give you if you're new to this and you're just now starting to work your way through the game is anytime a new shield opens up for you, you should, if at all possible, track down the materials and make it. As far as survivability goes, I have found nothing else gives you as big of a boost as the shield. Because worst case scenario, your shield gets burnt out. You can try to hide for a moment and let it actually recharge. It's a slower recharge timer than something like Halo, but at the end of the day, it's still a lot easier to manage than your raw health is. I'm going to go and actually get footage of me running through the Terraria dungeon in my current build. But before we go hit up the dungeon, I'm going to open up the menu, show my armor, show my current stats, show the current stats on the pals that I have, and then we'll go and just tear up the dungeon. Because I'll tell you now, the point that I'm currently at, significantly more power than where I am at the end of this video. Alright, remember, if you have enjoyed the series, please leave a like or a comment. Every bit of engagement helps push the video out into the algorithm. If you really enjoyed it, subscribe. And just to give an explanation for the people that this may have been the first series they joined in on the channel for, I like to sign out with something that expresses one clear fact. I consider myself a mid-level player. I don't have the time anymore in my life to actually pump into it to be a high-level player. So the reality is, if I can beat it, so can you. So I like to sign out with that as a reminder that stay strong, stick with it, and you can win. So remember, if I can beat it, so can you. Have a good night.